Welcome to another international location as the high-tech Super Series hits the road again. We're unmistakably in the City of London, and PSA Tour manager John Nimick explains why.
The opportunity to bring this major championship to the heart of London is irresistible to begin with, let alone to be able to put it in the heart of a corporate centre as high profile and as powerful as Broadgate, where we have some of the major financial institutions in the world headquartered here. I think there's an opportunity for squash to be the sport that is known as taking place in very either prestigious or beautiful or well-known landmarks. We have Grand Central Terminal in New York City, the pyramids in Al Ahram in Giza, which is really still the leading light for our tour. Now the Broadgate Center, who knows, the Eiffel Tower and the Brandenburg Gate and the Great Wall of China are next, so we've got a long list.
Well, promoters Advantage International have a tremendous lineup here for this special 8-man showdown. And since the last major event, it's this man who's been making the news. Canada's Jonathan Power plays his first Super Series event as the new world number one. He'll be taking on the very best, and among them Australian Rodney Isles, the previous world champion whose recent back operation should see him back on top form. They take on the other 6 top names in the Super Series rankings in a slightly different format at this Equitable Life Super Series event. The players meet in a round-robin basis in 2 groups that decide who goes through to the semi-finals. In the first group, Jonathan Power from Canada, the world number one, meets Stefan Castellane from Belgium. And they both have to play Paul Johnson, who's risen to number 4 in the world from England. And from Scotland, Martin Heath, world number 5, will also give them all something to worry about. Stefan Castellane from Belgium continues to improve his ranking, currently now at 13. Thanks to an injured Alex Goff and Simon Park, has a chance to demonstrate his talent here in London. But this is a tough showcase, straight in at the deep end against the new world number one in these best of 3 games qualifying matches. Try as he might, Power was on form, and Castellane was to be dispatched 15-10 and 15-7. The other match in the first round was one that everyone was looking forward to. Martin Heath from Scotland, ranked number 5 in the world, against Paul Johnson, now currently ranked number 4. The meteoric rise of both players is testimony to their determination to be at the top of the sport, and it showed here. Martin Heath took the first game 15-10, then Johnson took the second 15-8. And in the decider, the Englishman got the advantage 15-11. But Jonathan Power from Canada was still marching on. The Canadian seeming to enjoy the quick bursts of competition that this format involves. Heath certainly couldn't stick with him, losing 15-9 and then 15-12. Certainly the Canadian seemed to be on automatic, but Paul Johnson was powering up to take him on. In the second round, he'd just beaten Stefan Castellane 17-14, 13-15 and then 15-10. So no one was quite sure how he would match up when he met the world number one. Johnson was determined to show well against the Canadian and gradually was starting to force the errors and make the world's number one work a little harder for his points than he'd been used to so far this week. And as they came to game ball at 12-14 in Johnson's favour, he seemed the more determined. Well, certainly the home crowd were behind Paul Johnson, and as game 2 progressed, it was soon clear that Power was not ready to make the extra effort for points, having almost guaranteed his semi-final placing anyway. But the world #1 reputation didn't seem to mean much to him, and Johnson was only too happy to tarnish it a little, as he strolled out a clear winner at 15-14 in game 2 to put himself into the semi-final as well. Much to the delight of the local crowd. The question now was, who would they both meet? And it would be a tough fight, whoever they met. Peter Nicol, former world #1, anxious to get back the top spot. Anthony Hill, now the top player in Australia. Ahmed Barada, world #3 from Egypt. And Rodney Isles, the former world champion, coming back to form. Well, it was a notable development in the Australian squash hierarchy when World Open semi-finalist Anthony Hill rose to a career-equalling best of world #8, the first time the Belgium-based Hill had been ranked ahead of his compatriot Rodney Isles. And while the occasional bad boy of squash continues to prove his point on the court, he was to be no match for a determined Peter Nicol in round 1. The Scotsman taking the first game 15-8, and then powering ahead in game 2 to be sitting at 5-13. But again, silly mistakes were giving points away too easily. Although that could be said for the Scotsman as well.
And out 6-14.
And he would have to sharpen up once he'd got through to the semi-finals. But a good win under his belt for Nicol, and he was on his way, with the rest now under pressure to catch him. Well, we've seen some interesting confrontations between these two, Ahmed Barada from Egypt and Rodney Isles from Australia. It's been quite aggressive at times, but here Isles perhaps not quite back on top form. And Barada ever improving with his new quiet determination, fitness and style. Even time to pick up his racket before he finished off the Australian 15-5, 15-9. But the big expectation in this group was for the showdown between Peter Nicol from Scotland and that young Egyptian who is beginning to challenge him for his current #2 spot. Peter Nicol a year before at #1, before the Canadian Power sorted out his fitness and attitude. Nicol having taken over from the great Yansha Khan, a dedicated and very skillful young athlete who's led a new young band of talent to the top of the pro squash rankings in the last 12 months. And joining him there, Ahmed Barada, known only 18 months ago to augment his game with physical contact and theatrical protests, known for his weakness in a drawn-out match. But now how things have changed for this young man. A lot leaner, and that, coupled with his undoubted talent on court, has established Barada as a major force in world squash and possibly the first Egyptian to become world #1. A target so dear to the fanatic fans of Egypt, where squash is the equivalent of soccer as a national sport, and players like Barada are treated like pop stars. But here he was being treated just the same as any of other Nicol's opponents. Barada taking the first game 15-11, a bit of a shock to Nicol, but Nicol was back, taking the second game 15-10. And it was all to play for in the third. But Nicol wasn't treating this as a qualifying match. He wanted to prove a point. And at 14-7, he was serving for the match. So that finally decided our semi-final lineups. Some exciting squash in prospect, and also in prospect our regular competition, where you've got a chance to win a pair of leading pro squash shoes. All coming up after the break. Welcome back to the Broadgate Centre in the City of London and this Equitable Life Super Series event. We're at the semi-final stage. In the first one we're going to look at a real grudge match as former number one Nicol takes on the man who's deposed him. Power so far cruising the qualifying rounds and perhaps not yet showing the new steely determination that's taken him to that number one spot. It's been quite a long struggle to get there, but how's he now enjoying it?
It's been something I've been playing for all my life, and yeah, it's finally here. I think it's tougher being at the top. It's tougher to get motivated to play. It's just tougher to keep the same drive and excitement going once you get there, and then everybody's fighting to get up there behind you, and you got to sort of get motivated to fend them off. But yeah, it's going to be a little bit tougher.
Peter Nicol knows exactly what that pressure's all about, and he'd like to be feeling it again. He's a man who's trying to perfect his game even further, and he's a man who controls his emotions a great deal on court. But how is he feeling off court?
Yeah, obviously very disappointed, but in a way, it's good for the game. Jonathan deserves it because he played well over the year. Time for me to get it back. Physically, I'm feeling very strong. Mentally, I'm strong. I'm hitting the ball better than I ever have, especially in short, which I think is a big thing against Jonathan. And I'm looking forward to playing. It'll be a great battle, but either of us could win. But I'm feeling very confident.
Well, time for the truth as we go into game one and join our match commentators. Former world number 2, Chris Robertson from Australia, joining the voice of squash himself, Robert Edwards.
So the two players who claim to be the best in the world meet yet again in the set in this time, the heart of London. And we have Peter Nicol serving now in the white kit, British Open champion, gold medalist at the Commonwealth Games, and his opponent, Jonathan Power of Canada, world number 1 and world champion. Peter Nicol, well, he's looked like a man on a mission coming into this tournament, but Jonathan Power, Robbo?
Well, when he's playing well, the best in the world. His form coming into this match with Peter has not been of number 1 status, and that's why he's playing Peter in the semi-final. If he can't get himself up for this match, then I think he's going to be in a little bit of trouble, because Peter, knowing him quite well, very determined to set the record straight with the London crowd, to show that number 2 is only a little bit of a hiccup on his way back to number 1.
Yeah, certainly. Peter Nicol has been back to the drawing board after his loss to Jonathan in the World Championships in Doha, Qatar. And him and his coach Neil Harvey have put a new aspect in his game. He says, I'm playing a better short game. And I wonder, Robbo, if we can already have seen that. He certainly seems to be standing well up on court and taking the ball in front of the tee.
I think the great thing about Peter Nicol, Robert, is that he is always looking at his squash game, looking to improve it, different aspects of that, and I think he has worked out that his short game does need to go up a level to compete with John.
8-5.
And Jonathan Power, 8-5 up now, has clawed his way back into this, and he's done it with his usual mixture of brilliance. Tremendous player at the front of the court, playing with confidence, but we haven't reached the area where we're talking oxygen jet yet. And that's when we're going to find out just how much this young man from Canada has brought to these Super Series finals.
And Robert might have just seen a little bit of evidence there of the confidence in Peter's short game that we talked about earlier on. Able to take the ball in a little bit more clinically, win some quick free points, which is so hard to do against world-class opposition.
And Peter Nicol has stepped up the court. He's doing what he'd planned to do. Him and Neil Harvey have worked on this game, and certainly he's controlling the tee at the moment, and it's Jonathan who's doing a little bit of backcourt work. But there, very tight from Jonathan.
Okay.
Such a gifted player when he's flowing.
Out 9-7.
You see evidence there of his deceptive racket work. He's able to take the racket out to the ball, show the player a couple of shots, make his decision very late.
Yes, and again, Peter doing what he does so well. He's working Jonathan now,
8-9.
and he won't be happy with that. William Winter refuses the let. Little shake of the head from Jonathan. Never short of words, Robbo, is he on court?
No, if there was a ranking for dialogue, he'd certainly be well up there. Probably world number 1 and world champion, I would think.
But that's his talent. Did you see he held that ball for so long, and then the perfect depth.
10-8.
10-8. First game, and the importance of the first game to these players to just get that mental edge on the other one. How did you rank first game importance, Robert, when you were at the top of the game?
Well, it's important for any player of any sort of mental state, but when you're playing something like John Power, who you always sort of wonder how he's going to react to things, Peter would know that winning the first game would really set up a platform. I think if Peter lost it, he wouldn't be that concerned if he hasn't done that much physical work. He's able to back up and go again the next one.
Yes, during this tournament, Peter has certainly terrific recovery there from Nicol. Oh, and Jonathan Power on his knees with frustration, attempting the long straight drop.
Well, again, a lot of holding, a lot of flicking. Good lob there from Peter. Jonathan very aggressive, deep position to play that from.
He is different, is he not? From the bandana down, this young man is something else. There's only one Jonathan Power, that's for sure. And when he's playing well, for me, he's the best in the world. But what a competitor Peter Nicol is.
So to Nicol, 10-all.
And I think the racket has just caught him in the face.
Yeah, just a loose shot there from John. Wasn't too keen to get out of the way. Got a little clip there from Peter, but it was totally accidental.
So the match locked at 10-all.
Peter's done very well here, Robert. He was just hung in there the early part of this first game. Now the errors are starting to come from John. The patience is starting to go away. He thinks it's funny. I never thought putting the ball in the tin was that humorous, but
I'm not sure, although that's a great sign to see somebody laughing at an error in such an important match. I can believe in being loose, but I think there's a limit to it. Focus is the word.
well, again, I think you can't quite read John. He does have a lot of different mood swings and things like that, but again, another evidence of the short game there from Peter.
Now 12-11.
And that's 12-11. He needs 3 points now to close out this first game. Peter Nicol, left-handed, has brought a new dimension to the game of squash with concentration, incredible concentration, and surely a stroke.
Stroke to Nicol.
Yes, William Winter gives the stroke. Referee William Winter is an international referee, one of the top in the world, sanctioned by the World Squash Federation.
Just get the feeling here as well, Robert, this Perspex court here in London, not as fast off the front wall as the glass courts that a lot of the players are using recently in tournaments. Not quite sure it's as comfortable for John with his holds and his deception. It makes Peter's ability to read and move and soak him up just a little bit easier.
This surely the best rally of the game so far. Tremendous recoveries. We're getting a variety of shots and a lot of all-court action. Now Jonathan in kill position, and he does it. That's the Jonathan Power that won the World Championship in Qatar.
Again, had a rally of substance there, though. A lot of length, a lot of holding, a lot of deception, a lot of patience, and that's how John plays when he's playing well. Continually moves you around, keeps you off balance. And then he has the ability to put him away.
What a fine example.
13.
And they're back to 13 all. This could be quite a match. And to think with these young men we have years ahead of competition to watch. Certainly they're dominating the rankings at the moment, 1 and 2 in the world.
And out. 14-13.
So,
Game ball.
game ball to Peter Nicol. 14-13. A cry of anguish from Jonathan. Tremendous width from both players. But it was Peter first to attack. Jonathan still moving very well. And a big rally, big point. And he's missed it, frustration. And it's Peter Nicol comes off, 15-13, and the first game under his belt. Jonathan Power now has 2 minutes to rethink the game, prepare himself, and get back onto court.
First game to Nicol, 15-13.
There Neil Harvey pumping advice into his player.
And Jonathan Power sharing a joke with the crowd.
So the start of the second game, Peter Nicol serving, Jonathan Power receiving. Important for Jonathan to get straight back into this.
Got the quickest movement I've ever seen there, Robert, going forward.
1-love.
You are right, he needs to get going before Peter starts to dominate.
And Peter seems to have his tail up now, a lot of confidence, playing a good short shot there.
2-love. 2-10.
And Peter is continuing to dominate this game. 10-2 now. And the signs are not good for the world champion.
Well, it has to be said, Robert, it hasn't been a great performance from John Power after this first game. It really has looked to me like he's accepted he's going to come second in this match, and there's no real structure to his game, which is usually the strong point. People talk about his ability to play shots and be deceptive.
Well, how about that for frustration? I know he's got a lot of rackets, but that one nearly got disintegrated on the floor, and that's you know, Robbo, I feel that's the frustration of a genius who's just not performing to his levels.
Well, I think it's maybe a tantrum thrown for the crowd more than himself, because he's had a fair bit of time to build into this game and to get back into it, and he's just not really wanting to build like he's capable of doing, and that
was sloppy, really. I mean,
half the problem with being as good as he's been, is people expect to see him that way every time, and in this type of tournament I think it's a shame that he's not playing as well as he can.
13-2.
with Point O'Reilly scoring to be 13-2 down, that is in any sense of the word an absolute hammering. And Peter Nicol, I think, is out to get the revenge. He felt bitter about losing the World Championships, and that was really, well, quite honestly, really awful, that shot for the right-hand Nick. 14-2, game ball to Peter Nicol to go 2-love up. And it's a disinterested Jonathan Power who lunges at the ball, and Peter Nicol leaves the court 15-2 and 2-love up in this semi-final. Well, inspiration, that's what the boy needs.
13-4.
13-4. Peter Nicol is going to have sweet revenge here against his biggest rival, Jonathan Power, and backwall boast hits him in the head, and I think that pretty well says it all. It's 14-4, match ball to the Scot, and Jonathan's not even chasing. No, his hand's out. Peter Nicol has had sweet revenge, and the ball goes into the crowd, and Peter Nicol leaves 3-love up.
I knew it was going to be tough, or I thought it was going to be tough, but maybe looking back, you saw Jonathan maybe wasn't that motivated this week, and maybe needed a bit of time to adjust to becoming world number one, and maybe he's going to be ready for the tournament in Maastricht next month. But I was extremely happy with the way I played. I needed to improve a few things from last year and also in January, which I did. I took the ball in very well, countered very well, and wasn't as predictable as I normally am.
And now for a chance to win those 6 pairs of high-tech Adrenaline Pro squash shoes. If you can tell us the only other player that's been crowned Super Series Finals champion since its inception in '92, and the choice is Brett Martin, Peter Marshall or Del Harris, then send your answers to this address or enter via our website, superseries.co.uk. These details and more action again after the break. Welcome back to the Broadgate Centre in the City of London and this Equitable Life Super Series event, where a full crowd is packed in anticipation of our second semi-final. Ahmed Barada takes on Paul Johnson from England. Barada has improved so much in 12 months that many are now predicting him as a future number 1. But, as he readily admits himself, he won't have it all his own way against the young Johnson.
He's quite a tough player, and we played many times and always tough games and always 3-2. And today what I'm doing, I'm trying to win, and he also trying to win, and I think it will be a good match.
It certainly looks that way, with Paul Johnson for once the benefit of a home crowd and the continuing confidence drawn from his meteoric rise to world number 4, and he certainly knows about the wily Egyptian.
Mr. Barada again. Yeah, we've had a couple of tussles on the last 2 outings, but now we're in London, and obviously this is sort of home territory for me, and it's brilliant. I'm looking forward to getting into the match today, and we'll see how it goes.
So one for everyone to enjoy, as we once again join match commentators Chris Robertson and first Robert Edwards.
A lot of expectancy on this match. Paul Johnson ranked 4 in the world in the all-black kit, and his opponent, the mercurial young Egyptian Ahmed Barada. They're serving, ranked 3 in the world. 1-1 the score.
And out 1-1.
So Barada taking a 7-3 lead in this first game. Player who loves to attack, loves to go in short, and built with those huge legs. Wonderful power base there, Robbo, for movement.
A very explosive player. Does like to attack the ball, but he's been quite patient this first part of this match. Very choosy on which ball he takes short. A lot of that, a lot of hold and hit. To trying to take Paul Johnson as much as he can out of his stride, because Paul certainly is renowned for his movement and his grace around the court.
I suppose a compliment to him is to say he reminds me a little bit of you on court, Robbo. Both of you very much in the speed stakes, and Paul Johnson is certainly one of the quickest men in the world today. But it's 8-3, the Egyptian leads. Barada very focused on this match. It's been said of him that he plays better in his native Egypt, his beloved Egypt, but if he wants to achieve what he set out to achieve, he has to be able to perform on all stages and in all countries of the tour.
Robert, I know you have a close link with Ahmed. Is he ambitious as he would appear to be?
Oh yes, is he just. This young man doesn't just want to be the world's number 1 player. He's out to become something very special. He carries the name Egypt in his heart and on his clothes. He's very much a young man who wants to emulate the greats of the past, the Amrabays, the Karims of the world. So, yes, he also probably has one fantastic fan in the President of Egypt. President Mubarak is one of his biggest fans. So, yes, he's an ambitious young man. And he's got a great game.
He has got a good game. I'm not sure Tony Blair knows who Paul Johnson is, mine, but that's probably not going to count for too much here today. But Ahmed has started off very, very well. He's been very clinical, getting good length, keeping Paul well at bay at the back. Hasn't been doing many of them, though. He's usually been a little bit more patient than that. And that can be his one frailty, is he tends to get a little bit excited, starts taking the ball in short a little bit too often.
Any floating votes here with the audience will certainly go with the hometown boy, and that's PJ, Paul Johnson, a London boy, and all his family here today, mum, dad. His father, of course, an ex-professional soccer player, so sport runs in the family. Tremendous movement, Paul Johnson, and I think the last year has seen him come out of the apprenticeship and become a major force on the tour. Surely a stroke.
Important point there for Ahmed. He started to let Paul back in the game a little bit. Paul feeling it's not a stroke, but I think that's more of a reference for the referee, maybe for a future call, not that one particularly.
Referee Dean Clayton has been given a little lecture on how it should be done by Paul Johnson, like him to orchestrate the things.
And again, that's the frailties there, Robert. You see, very much deep part of the court. Not a real lot of advantage playing that drop shot. And he does suffer from that rush of blood, and he really does need to focus back in here in this first game.
Paul Johnson, who's had a terrific tournament already, a win over the world champion Jonathan Power under his belt, so he's flying with his confidence levels at the moment.
Oh, lovely hit and hold there.
Barada is really becoming a class act on the circuit now. Young man who won the World Junior title. That was when he first came into focus to the rest of the world, and he's done a great job. Lovely control of the ball here from Barada. Oh, it's almost like a practice routine until he does that. Now that was a class shot.
Yeah, perfect rally there from the number 3 player in the world. Really did take the ball in tight and at the right time, set up the open court. That's the patience side of things.
Both players now sweating profusely. And Johnson back in, but Barada says no, that ball was down. Interesting.
Hand out.
Little look from Barada. He doubts the decision there, but it's 10-12. Paul Johnson, 2 shots, 2 points adrift. Barada with terrific racket skills. Loves to control the front of the court. Lovely camera angle there showing the lob.
And that's the hit and hold. That should be no let. And is a no let.
Yeah, good decision by Dean Clayton, international referee. 13-10 Barada in the white shirt with the bandana. These two, of course, played a huge match at Al Aram in the semi-final when Barada was victorious.
And Paul really never has got into control in this first game, Robert. He has been kept at bay by the Egyptian. You get the feeling that Ahmed does need to win it, though, because he has played the superior squash. But all of a sudden, Paul's only 1 point adrift.
Yes, this last year has seen Paul Johnson become quite a force. He's patient, he's fit, and he's very professional in his preparations. And he's reaping the benefits. Ranked 4 in the world, number 1 in England.
You are right, Robert. He's very, very consistent. He's not put in many bad matches. There's not a lot you can do about that, though. Try to defend. Put it up in the air. Just put away.
Such an exciting player. Barada, 14-12, game ball. And that's a terrific strike by Johnson. Holds it and then drives it for a winner. 13-14, but it stays game ball to Barada. Barada loves to go for these short shots. That's where he's so exciting. Tremendous power. The game's in good hands when you see performances like this. patience from Barada, but surely he'll go for it here. And stroke. Well, Barada's walking. It is a stroke, and it's first game to him, 15-13.
A well-constructed point here from Ahmed. Takes him through the middle, puts him in short. Paul tries to fend it up, can't get off the wall. That's easy.
Well, a good match, ready to continue after the break. But therefore just a few minutes to reflect on that question that could win you a pair of pro squash shoes. Who is the only player to win this Super Series finals except from Yansha Khan? Entry details coming up later in the show. Welcome back as we all settle in our seats for the outcome of this thrilling semi-final, Barada versus Johnson, and courtside, Robert Edwards and Chris Robertson.
A vocal audience welcomes these two players to the second game. An immediate error there from Barada, who leads by 1-0 in this semi-final. And Paul Johnson never yet walked away from a fight. He'll be in there with a new game plan and a lot of energy. Robert, what would you have been saying to him between games?
Well, I think he needs to sort his length out a little bit, Robert. He was getting pegged back there a little bit too often. I think maybe he needs to start to be a little bit more aggressive going forward as well, because Ahmed is controlling that ball going in.
And immediately, Barada's back to his attacking style. He does love these short drops. They're so destructive. 1-1, back into hand. And there's his again. And that was a delight to watch. For all the students of the game, that's how you play a straight forehand drop. 2-1 Barada leads. Second game.
And that's not how you play a backhand drop.
That is not a good example. So locked together at 7-all. Paul Johnson has put the brakes on young Barada and is holding him. But he's having to do a lot of work, a lot of movement. And this rally, an example of it. And finally, the boast is the winner with Paul Johnson on the floor at the back of the court. Just a slip. And that gives Barada 8-7 in the second game. Now starting to take control, the young Egyptian, and that's the sort of shots he's done it with.
Last 5 or 6 points, Ahmed has played some wonderful squash. Paul's got a little bit narrow on his cross courts, a little bit loose down the wall. The number 1 Egyptian player has really hunted across the middle and taken the ball in well.
2 points away from a 2-game to love lead in this semi-final and a place in the prestigious final. Super Series, a big tournament on the calendar. And Paul Johnson's on his bike again. That ball out of court.
14-8, game ball.
And it's the deception of this young Egyptian. He holds that ball so well, and it gives him game ball to go 2-love up. And there it is, 15-8. Barada leads by 2-0 in this semi-final against Paul Johnson, the world number 4. And Johnson, his home crowd supporters behind him. Barada prepares for this third game.
5-love.
And it's been all Barada in this third game. 5-love he leads, and starting to look as though he's booked himself a place in the final.
Well, he's certainly come out, Robert, in this third game full of confidence. He's gone for the kill. Trying to knock Paul out before he can get back into this match. I have to say, it's been a very impressive performance from the Egyptian. Mix of patience and aggressiveness.
Greg Johnson, 2-5.
Maybe in the back of Paul's mind, he's thinking, if I can just hang in there. As you stated earlier on, he has got a big set of legs. They get a little bit tired. They're hard to cart them around.
Johnson has certainly got the support. Half his family have arrived from all over London here, swelling the audience, and I think any floating vote has gone his way. But it's going to need more than support. Ahmed Barada is starting to look like the real thing here. He's come of age.
That's better width there from Paul. Really got to take the volley away from Ahmed. Crosses the court so well. If you can push him up, make him look for the volley and he can't find it, then all of a sudden you're getting into a lot of hard work. This is a better rally from Paul.
Yes, both players are now putting a lot of variation into this. We're mixing it up.
That's again another wide ball, sending Ahmed back.
Oh, killing both there. Work Paul to the front.
This is the rally of the match so far, Robert.
We've got the best seat in the house here, Robert, and it's great squash. And surely a stroke. Yes, ends on a stroke, but a terrific rally.
Yeah, clearly a great rally from both players. All four corners used. Good short ball. Again, just a little bit too much for Paul.
Now, can Paul Johnson come back? He really needs to dig in here.
That's where I think Paul's lacking a little bit, Robert. When Ahmed's taking him in, he's just holding and hitting him back. He needs to put a counter drop in there. It's all a little bit predictable at the moment, those front corners from Paul. That's a little bit better. Take him in there and then feed off it.
Well, almost a cue for you there, Robert. And he's starting to come back. 3-6, and the crowd are loving this. Mama shredded her hanky in the front row.
And again, a little bit more aggressive there from Paul. Try to be the first one to take the ball in. If your opponent's doing it much better than you, you don't want to hang around and wait for him to do you.
And Paul Johnson, who's working so hard now to stay in this match, reads that well. Barada plays it straight, tries to fool him that it was going to go cross court. Johnson reads it, gets the stroke. 5-6, he's almost back on level terms in this game.
And he has changed his game a little bit to do it, which is a very important point.
Barada asking for the let.
No let.
And solid decision there by Dean Clayton, appreciated by the crowd.
11-12.
Crowd tried to raise their local man. Come on, Paul, they're shouting.
And he is hanging in big time here, Robert. He's clinging on to Ahmed at the moment.
But that's a terrific shot. That's what makes this Egyptian so exciting. This front court game can be so destructive.
13-11.
And it's 13-11, already leading by 2 games to love. Barada needs 2 more points to go into the final. What can Paul Johnson throw at him? And he's in the driving seat again. That backhand drive gives Ahmed Barada, world number 3, match ball. Now if he takes this, his opponent waiting for him in the final will be Peter Nicol, the number 1 seed. And surely he's not going to let it slip now. 14-11, and yes, there it is. That's the Cullen shot. Barada's in the final against Peter Nicol.
He's done it well all day. Picked the right one and hit it. Well played.
Match 3-love.
Full credit to Ahmed. He was hitting a better length than me. He was forcing me into the back corners, and I wasn't able to get into the corners quick enough to chip the ball, and force him back behind me again. It was a game of who was going to get in front and dictate the play, and full credit to Ahmed. He on the day he played better than I did, and I didn't really up the pace. I didn't really play the game I should have played until sort of late stages of the second game, and then the beginning of the third.
Paul is a very, very good player, and he's fast, and that's the way I'm playing. I want to win, and I love playing squash here in front of this crowd, but today I felt I was confident, and my shots was okay, and I played too many good shots, killing shots in front of the court. So I'm happy about my performance and the way I'm playing now.
Well, a great final to come here at the Broadgate Centre, so join us in our next programme as a refreshed Nicol takes on a hard-charging Barada in the final of this Equitable Life Super Series event. Welcome to the high-tech Super Series as it takes pro squash to another international location. We're here, right at the heart of the City of London for this Equitable Life Super Series event, as pro squash once again takes itself to the public. We spoke to one of the men responsible for bringing this sport here, and whose company owns this remarkable Broadgate arena.
In the winter, it's an ice rink, and of course in the spring, the ice melts, we clear it up, and we have probably the best arena for a venue in the city. We do run a whole series of events here throughout the year. But this is made to measure for it, and it's attracted great interest. We actually have 2 clubs in Broadgate. I think we must have at least 30,000 people coming here every day. They always love a game of squash to work off the adrenaline at the end of the day.
And if they enjoy a squash match, they'll certainly enjoy our final of this event. The world number 2, Peter Nicol from Scotland, against the world number 3, Ahmed Barada from Egypt. But first, we're going to take a look at the 3rd, 4th position playoff, which is interesting in its own right.
Serving, Jonathan Power receiving. Lovell.
It features 2 very different characters. The quiet and determined Englishman, Paul Johnson, who's worked his way up over the last 18 months to now number 4 in the world. And he was meeting the quixotic Jonathan Power from Canada. Power, who has just been ranked at number 1 since the last Super Series event in New York, should have been using this event as a showcase of his undoubted talent. Instead, it had been a lacklustre performance in the qualifying and then the semis that allowed Peter Nicol the confidence of beating him and winning a place through to the finals.
1-2.
The question was now, could Power be bothered to salvage some of his reputation against an always hungry Johnson? We take a quick look at some of the highlights of this very intriguing showdown now. In the early part of game 1, and certainly both players showing an equal level of skill and determination. But the talent's still there in Power's play, and as the game crept on, Power was edging ahead. Johnson had the technical satisfaction of beating Power in the last match of the qualifying rounds in this event. But had Power been cruising, knowing he'd already qualified? Or was he showing his weakness of character in staying at number 1 in the world? The Englishman was determined to explore further, and this was as good a chance as any to practice the tactics that might count in a major final showdown sooner rather than later if his rise to fame in the pro squash ranks continues. Certainly Power's concentration wasn't all that it might be. Could this be the weakness that Johnson could play on? Remarkable strokes coming in from the world number one. The crowd certainly taking to his character and to his talent. But Johnson determined to pursue him to the end. This a best of 3 games playoff. So certainly not a test of stamina.
And out 14-11, game ball.
But Power it was, still able to put in a joke.
And out 12-14, game ball.
But the world number one having to fight a little bit harder than he might have expected. And if he wasn't very careful indeed, this game could go completely the other way and prove yet another embarrassing moment for the new champion.
Game 15-12.
So, Paul Johnson, not sure what he can do to try and crack this world number one reputation.
And out 1-love.
But certainly not going to give up without a fight. And the heavy breathing of Jonathan Power at the end of that first game, possibly an indication that he hasn't been taking his training too seriously in the last few weeks.
2-love.
And certainly the old on-court banter coming back.
Straight to Power, hand out 1-2.
And the question was, were the flashes of brilliance going to be enough to sustain his dominance over Paul Johnson and his world-class reputation that he's established? Well, the answer was quickly no, as Johnson's efforts got their just rewards, and he went on to dominate game 2. Certainly now determined to make the world number one, earn his reputation, running him about the court. And perhaps that current fitness level going to be the letdown for the young Canadian.
14-8, game ball. Game 15-8, 1 game all.
And another sloppy finish from Power. An unforced error. About to give Johnson the opportunity of chalking up a deserved victory. Certainly the local crowd behind him. Paul Johnson based in Essex. And many of his supporters taking this opportunity to come here and cheer him on. They don't often see much of him as he plays on the World Tour,
14-8.
but their support rewarded as Johnson came to match point in Game 3, the deciding game in this 3-game playoff.
Game 15-8, match 2-1.
Playing against Jonathan, at the pace he plays at, and obviously he's not playing the conventional squash that we're used to of today. So, the more opportunity you get to play against him in these kind of events, the better it is. But it's difficult to say whether it's a step towards the World Championship. But I know there's still areas in my game which do need to be improved upon. But this has been a great week, great match practice. Bringing squash into London has been fantastic.
Today was third floor playoff. We don't normally do that, so it was very lighthearted and just try to sow some new shots out there, have a bit of a good time, and hopefully the crowd can get warmed up for the big final coming up here. That's mainly what we wanted to do, warm the crowd, keep them entertained.
Well, that big final and your chance to win one of 6 pairs of pro squash shoes coming up after the break. Welcome back to the Broadgate Centre here in London for the match that everyone's been anticipating, the final of this Equitable Life Super Series event. And what a final we have in prospect. With Jonathan Power putting in a lacklustre performance here, these boys are the two that are definitely on top form in the world of pro squash at the moment. Peter Nicol beating former world champion Rodney Isles in the qualifying. He had a very equal match against Barada before the satisfaction of 3 straight games against Power in the semis. Now he has to meet the Egyptian again. How's he feeling?
I feel great. It's my first time in the finals of the Super Series. Actually, the final of the finals of the Super Series, so I'm looking forward to playing, yeah. I'm probably more relaxed this week than I have been for a while. I've done a lot of different type of sort of work in the last 2-3 months, and I feel very confident with my game, so that's probably why I'm more relaxed.
But playing this man is never a very relaxed affair. A change in style, coaching and fitness last year has seen Barada live up to his undoubted potential ever since. And this possibly future number 1 has a very simple and clear approach to his games.
When I play top players like Peter, Jonathan Power or Paul Johnson, I keep the match going, and then inside the match I knew what I'm going to do.
Best of 5 games. So now we hand over to our match commentators as well. Number 2, Chris Robertson, joins courtside the voice of squash himself, Robert Edwards.
So the final of the Equitable Life Super Series sees the world's 2 top players on current form meeting head-to-head. There, Peter Nicol, British Open champion, and now world's number 2, having lost his number 1 spot only this month to Jonathan Power. And his opponent, wearing the bandana, the sensational Ahmed Barada from Egypt. And promises to be quite a clash, Robbo.
Well, they're certainly the 2 players in form at the moment, Robert. Ahmed's shown some good form in this tournament and in recent times, and Peter, he looks like he's back to reclaim his crown. Contrast in styles. Should be one good match.
Yes, the chemistry of certain players always gives us the big ones, and these 2 have the perfect chemistry. Interesting to see here just how much Peter Nicol has put into his short game, whether we're going to see. We didn't really see it properly against Jonathan Power in the semi-final. A match that was a little one-sided. But I'm sure Barada's going to test him. And that's where he likes to do it, at the front of the court.
Well, I think if Ahmed is putting good short balls in like he did against Paul Johnson in the semi-finals, Peter will have to counter that. He will have to be the first one in. So I think examination of the short game will come here today.
Possibly looking at 2 men who are going to compete in a lot of finals in the years to come. Peter Nicol, 26 now. Ahmed Barada, just 22. and in the wrong place.
A little example there from Peter of a little bit of deception that he's bringing into his game recently.
Stroke to Nicol, 4-love.
Certainly has been a confident start from Peter, but a little bit wayward from Ahmed. A little bit loose down the middle. Not quite got the range yet.
Peter Nicol, who prepares so well for his matches, always comes on court ready to go from point one. And he's run away with a few points here, 4-love up, first game. Barada needs to get himself into this quickly. And here's a perfect opportunity. A little bit of bumping and boring on the tee. And he's opened his scoring. 1-4 Barada.
Well, that was a typical bullish rally there from Ahmed. That was all power and a lot of leaping around. Again across on that volley and again on the forehand. I think we'll get a good look at his fitness levels as well, Robert, here. See how much work he's put in back there in sunny Cairo.
He's working with a new coach now and a fitness trainer. And he tells me it's been working for him. Upper body, much leaner than it's been. His lower body, of course, is quite famous on the circuit. Very solid young man below the waist. Big thighs. And the two of them feeling each other out now. Like two gladiators out there.
Again, we've already seen a little bit of evidence here of Peter taking the ball in a little bit more. Crowd like that rally.
It's a good crowd here today. Capacity. Wonderful setting. The Broadgate Centre in the heart of the City of London. First time ever for a Perspex court to be used outdoors in the United Kingdom. Very innovative experiment that's been proved to be a great success. And that shot from Barada finds the tin.
7-3.
And it's 7-3 to Peter Nicol.
Well, we just saw a huge strength there from Peter Nicol there, Robert. Dying length. He's able to find a length very, very easily from a lot of difficult positions. He just gives himself good tee position so often. And there again,
8-3.
copycat of the previous rally. Takes the pressure off your technique when you don't have to worry about hitting the winning shots.
At the moment, Peter Nicol is dominating at the front. Ahmed Barada, this is not his game to chase around the back. He's got to get in with that sort of shot. And that's his style of play. Hurt them and finish them off.
4-8.
Well, this is where the contrast comes in. Also the adaptability of both players, because you can't always rely on your game being dominant for the whole match. To be able to vary it in and out. We've already heard about Peter working on his short game and his ability to kill the ball. I think we saw evidence against Paul Johnson of Ahmed being a little bit more patient. So we know both players can be adaptable.
Certainly Barada has grown up over the last year. Been on the circuit for quite some time. First player ever to get a wild card and reach the final of a Super Series in his beloved Cairo, the Al Aram. He's got a lot to offer this game. He seems to be working now more to the front of the court, and that's where he feels at his happiest. Two thoroughbreds here, Robert, going to work.
Well, there's a lot of sounding out going on here. A lot of movement. A little bit sloppy there from Peter. Came over the top of the ball there. Try to roll it in.
5-8.
You usually don't see too many long rallies lost by Peter Nicol.
And there Barada just checking the strings of his racket. 5-8 this first game of the final. He's back in it, but still 3 points adrift. But he's playing his game now. But that's not it. He missed one.
And he's missed a few as well, particularly on the forehand side. Maybe that's a respect for Peter in his movement, his ability to get onto the ball, so he's trying to put it in there a little bit lower.
And remember, the tin here is set to 17 inches, 43 centimeters at this level of squash, as opposed to 19 inches in the normal clubs.
And there's a product of it getting him up. If he's created the correct position, the shot will do the work. You don't have to make it any better. And that little bit of that Egyptian flick with the hips always makes it a little bit harder.
Yes, it's a long way round those hips, isn't it, Robbo?
A little bit of medicine there back for Peter. Some good length ball.
7-9.
And he's all of a sudden, he's only 2 points down. He's done well to claw back here. He certainly does seem a confident player at the moment. Not seeing any of this temperamental side of things that has crept into his games in the past.
I think it's called growing up. He's come of age over the last 12 months, and I think winning the Al-Aram was a great boost for him. Believes in himself so much, as does Peter Nicol, of course.
10-7.
So it's 10-7. Peter Nicol, first game. Terrific angle there, showing the depth of the court. Oh, Peter Nicol crunching that in. Now very much on the attack. Not somebody to let you off the hook. Peter Nicol can be a cruel player on times.
And he's certainly more aggressive against Ahmed today as well. He's determined not to let him dictate the match. Forcing to play shots from behind the service box like that.
Peter will be pleased with this. 11-7. Seemingly has this first game under control. But with somebody with the skills of Barada, you never know. He can run a roll of points. And that's an example. Terrific overhead backhand, short for a winner.
He set it up so well with the crunching forehand first. Got Peter fending it.
Not ready, the Scotsman.
8-11.
8-11.
Lots of opportunity there from Peter. Thought he might take that forehand on the volley.
Terrific lift from Barada. Great camera angle. But that's the one he's been missing. I think that's the story of this first game. He's missed at least 4 or 5 of those shots, and you can't at this level.
Well, again, I think it's a lack of patience, Robert. I mean, it's not as if that shot's going to beat Peter. It's something that he's got to earn a little bit more, I think.
Oh, that's a fine backhand from Peter Nicol.
He's sitting to open space at the moment, Peter. He's constructing the rallies, he's finding the angles, and those shots become a lot easier if you're aware the opponent's on the wrong side of you.
13-8, Peter Nicol. And yes, he gets the stroke, and that gives him game ball at 14-8. The Scotsman looking likely to take the first game of this final. And that shot into the tin from Barada does give the first game to Peter Nicol in this final. 1-love to the Scotsman.
The last point sees Ahmed stretching deep backhand. Too many of them, he'll have to sort that out.
So, plenty of action still to come from these two players, but in the meantime, a chance for you to win one of 6 pairs of high-tech Adrenaline Pro squash shoes. Just name the player other than Yansha Khan who's been crowned Super Series Finals champion since the event's inception in '92. Brett Martin, Peter Marshall, Del Harris the choice. Answers to high-tech Super Series competition, PSA, 82 Cathedral Road, Cardiff, or via our website at Super Series Co UK. All the details again, and more action after the break.
1 game to love. Love all.
This second game, Ahmed Barada has got to ask some questions of Peter Nicol. He was certainly a little sloppy in the first game, Barada, and he'll be aware of that.
Well, he started very well, Robert. And if you're asking for a start, he's just given us one. Crunching forehand. Got an error from Peter. 2-love lead.
Yes, he'll be pleased with that. And he's looking as though he's into his attacking mode.
Wow, that's a beautiful forehand volley. Kill come, smash come, whatever you want to call it. And that's the problem with this man. He's very, very dangerous and he can reel him away.
This is the start he'd have been looking for. You cannot let Peter Nicol get away from you. He's just too good. Barada's got to come out and impose himself on this Scotsman. All goes well for a... Oh, lovely shot there from Peter Nicol. Clung to the wall. But if we see them both playing well at the same time, we'll be given a treat of squash. Superb mixture of skills here, power and delicacy, one following the other.
Nice aspect of this, Robert, is both players are not afraid to lift the ball when needed. Both lob and push the ball down the lines and cross court a lot. They're always trying to get court position.
1-3.
From a coaching point of view, that's what you want youngsters to do.
And in the background there, Peter Nicol's father, Pat, with a worried look on his face. But that's not unusual. He usually has a worried look. Oh, this is lovely squash. Both players. Oh, until Barada finds the tin. Both players attacking that forehand side. Peter Nicol in control at the moment, imposing himself.
He's just trying to hang on at the moment, Robert. Ahmed really has gone into overdrive the last few minutes. Peter's just trying to hold on here. Oh, a little bit of frustration. Misjudged the bounce of the ball there a little bit.
9-4.
Noah's now got a 5-point lead. And his dad does look a little bit worried now.
9-4 Barada, and he loves to play from the front. At this level, that's quite a lead. And when you can play shots like that, you can extend it.
That was a good pickup. Good shot from Peter, very positive.
Barada's hot now. And he's asking the questions of Peter Nicol.
Ahmed did come out at the start of the second game, all guns blazing. He's continued it on very well throughout the course of the game.
Yes, this is a different boy than the one that played the first. And surely a stroke, yes, he's got it.
14-7, game ball.
And it gives him game ball. 14-7. And if he takes this, he'll level the scores to 1 game each. But that clung to the wall from Peter Nicol.
And at 8-14, game ball.
It stays game ball to Barada. And he misses that one. Goes for a kill off the serve. Stays game ball. Barada will be looking to close this out on this point. And that looks deep. He's done it. Yes, the scores are level. 1 game each in this final match.
He's a different player this game, much more patient. Here's the opportunity. Quickly on it down the line. Well played.
And Neil Harvey, Peter's coach, in ready with some information for him. Prepare him for the next game. Barada now looking very relaxed. He's got it back to level terms. 1 game all. And he'll come out fired up for this. So, one game each. And these two informed players clash again for the third game. And first blood to Peter Nicol. One love.
Very important, Robert, that he holds Barada off here. Didn't get away to a great start last game. Ended up losing it.
An interesting point here. Whichever of these two players should win, we have a new champion, because other than Jansha Khan, only Del Harris of England has ever held this title. And Barada won't be happy with that. Straight drop into the tin. 2-love, Peter Nicol.
I think it's always getting the blend right for Ahmed Barada, Robert. Gets the blend right. He's capable of beating anybody, and comfortably.
Terrific to see the player so exciting bursting onto our squash scene. And he's lit a few fires around the world, especially, of course, in Egypt. And that's the way he's done it. Terrific play.
But again, Peter's up to the task. Very economical, lovely quiet mover.
Nice to see Hidi Yahan in the top right there, one of the all-time greats of the game. Peter Nicol with a solid game now leads 7-13.
8-13.
And Barada back with 1 point, 8-13. But surely the world number 2 now will be thinking to himself, I'm going to take a lead here, this game is mine.
And he's done it without a minimum of fuss as well, Robert. He's been very professional this third game. It's taken a little bit of brilliance from Ahmed the last 2 points. Backhand cross-court volley, Nick. Beautiful stretch volley. But he's still a number of points down, and that's a tribute to this chap here.
He doesn't give much away on that court, does he?
No, I mean, this game is about consistency as well and being able to produce it rally after rally. And he has become a little bit more aggressive in his approach, as he stated a few times in interviews, and certainly much better for the game to see that.
Frustration there from Barada.
And at 14-9.
And it's given Peter Nicol game ball, 14-9. And that would put him 2-1 up in this final. And controlling the tee at the moment. Barada not even moving up for it. Peter Nicol's taking it to go 2 games to 1 up.
Well, what answers can the young Egyptian come up with? And what answers can you come up with in our viewers' competition? Was it Brett Martin, Peter Marshall or Del Harris, who was the other Super Series Finals champion other than Jansha Khan since the event began? Answers to this address or via our website at Super Series Co UK, and you could be one of our lucky viewers who picks up one of the 6 pairs of Pro Squash shoes. More action after the break. Welcome back as we rejoin our match commentators Chris Robertson and Robert Edwards for what could be a deciding game.
Level.
Well, the referee has set the scene for this 4th game, and Peter Nicol, I'm sure, will be hoping it's the last of this tournament. But I'm also sure that Ahmed Barada will have thoughts of his own on that. Robo, just what would you have been saying to Barada between these last 2 games?
Well, I think he's got to get his blend back, Robert. His patience gets a little bit wanting when Peter starts exerting the pressure. And I think there is no other way of beating a player of Peter's quality unless you are prepared to work a little bit harder every single point like he did in the second game.
Well, this is certainly a fierce pace. They're meeting each other toe-to-toe. And Barada is forcing the pace. And lovely deception from him. Now a clash of bodies. Barada immediately apologises.
Will you please watch the physical contact? No let.
And a warning for physical contact from the referee.
Yeah, a little bit harsh there on the warning, and But a good decision from the referee. Contact wouldn't have given him the let.
Nice to see the two players shake hands. Good friends off the court. Still explaining.
That's a nice side of him as well, Robert.
1 love.
Did have a little bit of a reputation for not being afraid to get into the back of opponents, so I think that maturity you were talking about earlier is certainly evident there. That rally was mixed with a lot of energy and pace around the middle. But don't think Ahmed can afford to try and blow Peter away. I think Peter's too good for that.
And he's kept the same pace up. Now, Barada asking the referee to look.
And down, 1-all.
He's giving him a warning now, is he? Give him a warning because he's not looking. But that was a better drop shot. It was a better balanced rally.
In fact, I feel that this is the best part of the match so far. Absolute quality coming from both players. The others seem to have gone out of their games, especially Barada.
Similar start, isn't it, to the second game when he got off to a bit of a flyer. Played the right shots at the right time. And again, there we see it. He needed a good length ball. He was able to hit it.
3-1.
And that gives him 3-1 in this fourth game. Of course, trailing by 2-1. But the crowd are getting their money's full now. This is really good squash.
That's a beautiful lift by Peter. Certainly the best lifter in the game.
Well, the crowd in raptures over this, and it's 5-all in the fourth game. Both players playing well at the same time, delighting the crowd. Amazing that stayed in court. We said at the beginning of the tournament that Peter Nicol looked like a man on a mission. Well, he's never lost that from day one. A credit to the profession, and Barada is a fine opponent in this final.
Peter thinks that's gone down, Robert. Difficult to tell. Ball did stop very quickly. But again, Ahmed hit it very hard.
Both players now will be working on adrenaline, not thinking of the pain, and surely a stroke there for Barada.
Barada, 7-5.
That's the area where he's getting a lot of joy in this fourth game. On the counter drop, pushing the ball in nice and tight, coming in behind it, looking for the volley. Just opened up a little bit of a lead again.
7-5 in this fourth game to Barada. And he's playing very well now.
Oh, that's a wonderful rally.
Sensational drop. But how well he worked it before the final stroke.
Talk about short and long. He worked it with the high and low shot there. Used the lob to pull Peter up. And then the drop to pull him down. And again, quickly on the ball. Peter just a little bit on his heels.
9-5.
4 on the spin. All of a sudden there's a bit of encouragement from the crowd. They sense that could be a 5-setter looming.
Barada's in a purple patch at the moment. Peter Nicol's got to have to do something about it. And is that the start?
And then 6-9.
And those long rallies have seemed to go away now, Robert. It seems to be a little bit shorter and sharper. And again, another short rally. Quick volley this time from Peter.
7-9.
He definitely has improved his short game. Peter Nicol, very much the all-round player. Oh, lovely deception from him. And how well did he read that? Superb reaction.
And this is where Ahmed lets himself down. Peter just started to come back at him. Ahmed takes the ball short off the serve. Just a little bit too soon. He needs just to remain patient. And again, lost another point. Another beautiful drop shot. He's giving Peter the front of the court too easily here, Robert.
9-all.
From 9-5 to 9-all. We've got 8 points, 4 each way.
Peter Niccol's definitely on a roll. 9-all in the fourth game. Peter Nicol leading by 2 games to 1.
See Ahmed gesturing to himself there to calm down. He's lost the plot in the last few minutes. Oh, wonderful pickup from there from Peter.
Stroke to Nicol. Ball's good.
Stroke the obvious call. Ahmed querying the pickup.
11.
Looked a bit dodgy, I've got to be honest.
But typical of the young man, just gets on with it. Locks back into concentration, and he's going to need it. Oh, wonderful example of drop and counter drop. And this time the Egyptian takes the point.
Well, we haven't seen a ball hit the back wall for a while, Robert, I know that. It's been a lot of volley drops and counter drops. Might be a little bit indicative of the fitness levels of both players.
And also maybe the confidence levels, Robbo. Now that... Oh, it's been refused.
Yeah, that was harsh.
Well,
Peter's got a little smile on his face because he's just got a free one there.
12-10.
Not going to look at the referee. Might thank him later on.
the face says it all, doesn't it?
Well, the drop shot was good, but certainly Ahmed was in good position and Peter didn't give him access to the ball. Pretty much a routine let. The referee's been pretty quiet so far, which is a good sign, but he's made his presence felt now.
12-10, and Barada immediately back.
And again, there's been so many short balls. The ball's gone a little bit cold as well, which means the short ball is staying up the front a lot more. Still in this game, mind.
These are big points now.
Oh, there's a little bit of fishing.
A little release of tension there from Barada. I think still smarting over that earlier decision. Has to get on with it now. Peter Nicol certainly will. And that ball out of court.
And then 13-11.
So 2 points away, Peter Nicol, from another title to add to his glittering career.
Oh, that roll forehand drop shot has worked well in this final game for Peter.
14-11. Match ball.
Well, it's match ball, championship ball, and can Peter Nicol do it at the first time of asking? Barada's been a fine opponent, and we're going to see a great deal of this young man over the years to come. And he's not out of this yet. But he is now. Peter Nicol puts out his hand, and he is the Equitable Life Super Series champion.
That's a fitting end to a great match. Both players on the tee, looking for the volley. Ahmed just pushing it. That gives Peter the title.
I'm pleased. It was a good match. I played good this week. I played good. I read the final. I came second. It's good for me, but next time I'll try to win.
You seem to sort of pick up it from the second game onwards.
Yeah, first game, I don't know what was happening. I wasn't in a good mood. And the second, I played right. And it was a good match. All the match was good.
Well, a check for Barada, but satisfaction for Nicol.
I've been an underachiever in this event. It's about time I played well in it. I'm glad I won it, but it was just nice to play well. Also, it was a double-edged sword because I'd just gone down to 2. Jonathan's gone to 1, to beat him in the semis and Ahmed in the final, and really show that I'm back at my best, if not playing better than I was last year. It's a great feeling for me.
Well, a great feeling indeed as he lifts the Equitable Life trophy for the first time ever. And lots to come from the Scotsman.